All right, so we're diving into the world of precious metals IRAs today. Everyone's talking about gold and silver, and we want to see if it's worth adding a little shine to your retirement portfolio. We've got this awesome guide here from Gold IRA Blueprint. Came out just last month, August 2024. It's got all the rules, the good stuff, the not so good stuff, basically everything you need to know.
You know, it's really interesting to see more and more people looking beyond the typical, like, stocks and bonds these days. They want something real, right? Something with a bit more history, especially with so much economic uncertainty. It's like they're looking for some stability they can actually hold in their hands.
Absolutely, yeah, that feeling of holding a piece of history, very appealing. And this guide, it cuts right to the chase with the essential need-to-knows. We're talking gold, obviously, silver, platinum, even palladium. But, and this is important, you can't just throw any old coin in there. It's got to meet some specific requirements to actually qualify, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not like reading your grandma's jewelry box, unfortunately. The IRS, they have these fineness standards. It's all about purity levels. Like, let's say you've got a gold bar. To be IRA worthy, it needs to be at least 99.5% pure gold. Got to meet those IRS standards. And, you know, the guide even mentions some popular options. We're talking American Eagle coins, Krugerrands, Canadian maple leafs. They're known for, you know, looking good and, more importantly, meeting those purity rules.
Okay, so it's like having a treasure chest, but it's got to be IRS-approved treasure.
I like it.
But speaking of limits, how much can you actually put into one of these precious metals IRAs each year? There's got to be some kind of cap.
Well, yeah, there are definitely limits. Can't just become a gold hoarding dragon. So for 2024, those limits are the same as traditional IRAs. But this guide, it's smart. It uses the 2021 limits as an example because these things can change year to year. You know, it's kind of like your annual checkup with the doctor, but for your finances. Got to stay up to date.
Staying updated is key, I hear you. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, I think. Distribution rules. You can't just decide, hey, I want that new phone and cash in your gold bar, right?
Exactly. Imagine gold prices go through the roof. Your distribution then. Way different than if the market's taken a hit. That's what this guide's really highlighting. Things like market conditions, even just the price of gold on that particular day, it all plays a role. Understanding how those markets move. Pretty crucial.
And speaking of things that could potentially be a downside,
let's not forget everybody's favorite, taxes. Your retirement savings might be, you know, shimmering away in a vault, but the tax man still wants his share eventually.
Right, of course. Always. But the good news, the guide really points this out, is that you get tax-deferred growth, which is huge. Mm-hmm. Your investments grow, but you don't get taxed on those gains every year, not until you start taking withdrawals. However, and it's a big however, ignore those IRS rules. You're looking at some serious penalties. We're talking fees, extra taxes, and suddenly that golden retirement. Not so shiny anymore. Okay, so we've got the rules down. We know about those taxes. But what about the good stuff, right? Why even bother with a precious metals IRA? What's the upside?
Right, that's where those benefits come in. The guide, it focuses on three big ones. Diversification, high returns, maybe, and that inflation hedge everyone's talking about.
You know, I've got to be honest, diversification, it sounds great on paper, but it's one of those words like I hear it and I'm like, yeah, don't put all my eggs in one basket, but I don't really get it. How does that actually work with precious metals?
Okay, picture this. Your portfolio. It's like a table, right? Stocks and bonds. Those are your two main legs. They hold everything up. But then the market gets shaky. Suddenly, the legs a little wobbly. Precious metals, like adding a third leg to that table. And not just any leg, a nice sturdy oak leg, you know? Mm-hmm. Keeps that table from tipping over.
Okay, now that is an image. So we're talking about stability.
Exactly. That's the key. Because historically, precious metals, they haven't moved in the same way as stocks and bonds. The stock market takes a dive. Prices plummet. Your precious metal, they might just hold steady. Maybe even go up. That's your buffer right there. Offsets those losses. It's all about balance.
Balance. Got it. Okay, let's talk about those higher returns. Now, the guide mentions these historical trends, but we're not naive. Past performance isn't exactly a guarantee, is it?
True. No crystal ball here. But those trends, they can give us some clues. And what's interesting is precious metals, they tend to do pretty well when the economy feels a little uncertain. Remember that table analogy? When those stock market legs start to wobble, people, they turn to something solid, something tangible, like gold, silver. It's about preserving value when everything else feels risky, and when demand goes up, prices often follow. That's where that potential for higher returns comes in.
So when times get tough, the tough invest in gold. I can see it.
Basically. Which leads us right into the next benefit, that inflation hedge. Think about it. When inflation goes up, your money. It doesn't go as far.
Tell me about it. Have you seen what they're charging for coffee these days? Crazy.
It's true. But here's the thing about precious metals. Their value. It comes from what they are. They're tangible. They're real. They're not as affected by inflation as, say, paper money. Think of it like this. A gold coin from 100 years ago. You could still buy a decent amount of stuff with it today. Its value has lasted, even though our dollar doesn't go as far as it used to.
Okay, I think I'm getting it now. So how do you actually make this happen? How do you set up a precious metals IRA? It all seems very official.
It's not as intimidating as you might think, really. The guide breaks it down into manageable steps.
And step 1, choosing a custodian.
A custodian. Is that like a bodyguard for your gold? Kind of, yeah. They're the ones holding onto your precious metals, making sure they're safe and sound in secure storage, and they handle all the official IRA paperwork and stuff. The guide really emphasizes finding a custodian with a really good reputation. Experience matters, and they've got to be following all those IRS rules. You're trusting them with your savings. Due diligence is key.
So it's like finding a financial advisor, but with a little more sparkle.
Exactly. Do your research just like you would with an advisor. Look at the fees, what they offer, what are people saying about them online, are they easy to get a hold of, do they answer your questions? Those are the things that matter.
Gotta check those reviews. So, you found your custodian, what's next? Time to fund that IRA. I'm guessing you don't just, show up with a bag of gold coins?
Yeah. Huh. I wish it were that easy. It's a bit more straightforward than that. Usually involves rollovers or direct transfers. You can move funds from another IRA, maybe even a 401k. It all depends on your situation and what makes the most sense, tax-wise.
Okay, so we've got our custodian, we've funded the account. Now for the fun part, right? Shopping for precious metals.
That's the exciting part. But remember, not all that glitters is IRA approved. Those IRS fineness standards, those still apply. The guide actually gives some good examples, like PayMP Swiss bars. Those are known for their quality, and they definitely meet those IRS requirements.
PayMP Swiss. Sounds fancy. But once you've got your precious metals, where do they even go? Under the mattress? Seems a little risky, even for me.
Huh. Probably not the best strategy. The guide really emphasizes IRS-approved depositories. These are super secure storage facilities, designed just for precious metals held in IRAs. They handle all the security and logistics. You can rest easy knowing your investments are safe and sound.
Okay, safety first. So we've chosen a custodian, funded our IRA, picked out our precious metals, and stashed them away securely. Is that it? Is that the whole process?
We've covered a lot, that's for sure. But remember those risks we touched on earlier? We can't just ignore those. Even with the best planning, there are always risks involved. With anything. Precious metals, no exception. So let's talk about those for a minute, do a little risk assessment.
Risk assessment. Not the most exciting part, I know, but definitely important. What do we need to be aware of with these precious metals IRAs? What could go wrong?
Well, the guide lays out 3 main risks to watch out for. We've got market volatility, counterparty risk, and then, of course, those storage and insurance costs can really sneak up on you.
Wait, let's break those down. Market volatility. Even just hearing those words makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
How does that work with precious metals?
It's like anything else, The price of gold, silver, platinum, even palladium, it goes up, it goes down. It's a global market. Supply and demand, what's going on in the world, even just what investors are feeling that day, all of that plays a role. One day, everybody wants gold. The next day, not so much. The guide even mentions gold mining companies, their stock goes up and down along with the price of gold. Makes them pretty vulnerable to those swings.
So even though precious metals are supposed to be the safe haven, their prices can still get chaotic.
Exactly. Gotta go in with that long-term mindset. Don't panic if things move around a bit in the short term. You're in it for the long haul.
Good advice for any investment, really.
Yeah.
Okay, how about that second one you mentioned? Counterparty risk. What is that?
So, counterparty risk. It's basically the risk that, someone you're doing business with doesn't do what they're supposed to. In the world of precious metal IRAs, that could be your custodian, the depository, even the dealer where you're buying your metals.
So it's like the risk that someone's not as trustworthy as they seem.
Exactly. That's why this guide, it's really big on doing your research. Find someone reputable. Check their background. See what other people are saying about them online. Make sure they're playing by all the IRS rules. This is your retirement we're talking about. It's worth taking the time to find people you can actually trust.
Absolutely. Due diligence. And then the last one, storage and insurance costs.
Ah, yeah, those hidden fees. Storing precious metals, it's got to be done right, securely, insuring them against damage, loss, theft. That all costs money. The guide's really good about reminding us. Factor those costs in. They can eat into your returns if you're not careful.
Right. It's not just about what you pay for the metals themselves. It's the total cost.
Exactly. And those costs, they can vary a lot. Shop around, compare fees. Don't be afraid to ask for a detailed breakdown. Transparency is crucial.
I'm all about transparency. So we've talked about a lot today. The rules around precious metals IRAs, the good, the bad, the ugly, how to set one up even. But let's go back to the beginning for a second. Choosing a custodian. That seems really important.
It's a big decision.
It's like the foundation of a house, right? You want to make sure it's solid. Besides reputation, experience, what else should we look for in a custodian?
The guide's got some really practical advice. Experience matters. You don't want someone who's brand new to this. Find someone who's been around the block, who's seen different market ups and downs, who really gets how these IRAs work.
Like a ship captain who's weathered a few storms.
Exactly. And that's where, those customer reviews, they're your best friend. Read what other investors are saying, good and bad. Are they responsive, helpful? Are there any red flags popping up?
So much you can learn from other people's experiences.
100%. And then, don't forget about fees. We talked about storage and insurance, but there can be other fees too. Account setup, maintenance, transactions, they add up.
Like those hidden baggage fees at the airport? No one likes those.
For real.
Yeah.
So yeah, compare those fees across different custodians, ask questions. Remember, when it comes to your money, transparency is key.
I'm writing all this down. Transparency, due diligence,
That's right.
thinking long term. I feel so much more prepared to tackle this whole precious metals IRA thing now.
That's what we like to hear. Knowledge is power, right? Especially with your